Hello and welcome to the Goddess Embodied episode with beautiful Astara Jane Ashley. And she is somebody very special in my priestess path and has been in my life through this beautiful frequency for quite a few years. So it's a special honor, and I'm very excited to connect with you today because it has been a whole minute since I think we've chatted.
I know. Thank you so much, Taida, for the opportunity. And I was just feeling back into when we last saw each other. We were in person in New York City. Yeah, we went in for an event, or you came in, and I can't even remember what the event was, but we were there, and I just remember wandering the streets of New York City together. And yeah, so I've missed you. This COVID thing has created this weird time warp,
Oh my
right?
gosh,
And
absolutely.
it's like the beautiful thing about the path, though, is that when we get back together, it's like no time has passed. So I think that's a really cool thing, is this knowing that our souls are always connected. And as
Yes,
sisters, no matter how much time or weirdness happens in between, because there's a lot of
absolutely.
weirdness happening.
Yeah, there's so much weirdness and it's evolving. And parallel to that, we are on this path in such a strong, beautiful connection as in these sacred spaces with the sacred feminine and archetypal work. And we're going through so many different timelines in this lifetime as we explore, what the blueprint of our soul purpose and journey is. And it's such a joy to connect with you. And you're right, you were talking about your fantastic company, Flower of Life Press, at this New York event. And it was like a small little, it was like a retreat almost for women. And that was one of my first, almost like spiritually coming out type of events. So it was very important to be held in a safe container where, it can feel so uncomfortable in the beginning when one begins to talk about, oh, there's this aspect of me that's a sacred path. So that was a wonderful
Yeah.
time for me.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's true that the being with each other in sacred space as sisters in this way is different. It's different than the way we've sort of been trained to be with each other. And so I love the path, the priestess path, because it does create this soul connection and this web, this network of light beings who are here to just find a way to do it collaboratively and finding a way to serve somehow, and I really feel your light really magnified, and the work that you're doing, bringing your own experiences to the world is so important because everybody's story matters. And so that, I think that's what I've learned the most over these years of saying yes to a sacred path, to the spiritual part of my life, of my personality, is just the beauty of the relationships and the willingness to do it in a new way that feels different or better or somehow more
Yeah.
activating.
Yes, and we actually met through such a space through Priestess Presence Temple. I don't remember
Mhm.
exactly. It was a few years ago. And I've just been, it's exactly what you're saying, this sacred space, which is co-creating, it's coexisting in
Yeah.
a blossoming kind of way, which is the particular space that nurtures us at a soul level where, we come and we go through these different experiences of awakening different parts of ourselves that
Mhm.
we can't always do in a regular 3D environment. And so it's just so precious and beautiful. And I'm just so grateful to also witness you as your community is growing and as the offerings are growing. And I know we collaborated on a few book projects as well. And this is sort of, I always feel like, your Flower of Life Press, the company that you started, and walking as priestess of prosperity and priestess of abundance, and all of the different offerings over the years have just supported so many women, and not only women, but primarily women, to step out and tell their story and really express their soul purpose as they're exploring it through publishing, which I think it's such a needed and rare and such an important medicine for not only the person, as I've learned going through it, but also the recipient, who's supported by the reader or the recipient of the message of the texts and books, receiving this also support to continue on their path, to continue on remaining aligned to, what truly is in their heart, and not to live a life that they feel they have to just because things are there, or because it's not as important to actually ask ourselves, what is it that I want, and to follow our soul path for a deeper, more purposeful life.
Yeah. And it's funny, the flower of life, the sacred geometry of the flower of life is really the perfect symbol. And it just kind of came to me by accident. Actually, my husband downloaded the brand for our company. And then he just said, here you go. And I said, okay, I guess I'll be a publisher now.
Oh, wow.
Whatever that is. And what it's shown me is that the geometry has been holding the space for me this entire time. And even though I didn't really know what it was all about or what it meant when I began about 15 years ago, it just somehow felt right. And the more I've learned about the flower of life, the more I understand that it really is just the expansion of life, and how a flower actually blossoms and continues to go through that cycle of life, death, rebirth. And it's the imprint, the basic imprint of like a cell splitting into two, and the seed of what life really is. And so over time now, over the past few years, I've been deepening into the mysteries of the flower of life. And I was in Egypt, and I saw it in the temples in Abydos, in the temple in Abydos. And it was so amazing to witness that symbol being so present 4,000, 5, 10, who knows how long ago, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just been a really cool thing to be able to hold the center of the flower of life and inviting people to join me in this web of expansion. And when I mean expansion, I mean breaking out of our confined belief system and being willing to look at it and say, wait, is that really true for me or not? And finding our truth and trusting it. For me, as a young person, I didn't know who I was. I felt like a shell, really, sort of going through the motions, but without the embodiment of my soul inside of me, in my heart. I didn't know. I was just going through the motions, of what you're supposed to do and what would make everybody else happy. But finding the truth inside of all of that is really what the journey is. Every single one of us who ends up on a spiritual path. What is true for me? How can I be in integrity? How can I be in relationships? How can I use my power for good? How can I claim my power? How can I make an impact? And so it's like getting out of our own little personal bubble and into something more meta, more collective, more aligned with the oneness consciousness, aligned with the earth. I think the earth is really, she has been nature, and the earth has been the thing that has brought me into this place. And it was flowers. And I love this theme of flowers too, because you work with flowers in your beautiful mandalas, crystals and flowers, and just the petals of the flowers and the leaves and all of it, right?
Yeah.
Such a gorgeous symbol of life, of beauty, of rebirth, of opening and closing.
It's incredible. Well,
Yeah.
and you, thank you, because you witnessed me from the beginning when that came, this mandala making that came as a surprise when I was, as a, not really, I don't want to say it's not spiritual, but not religious, or not thinking in this way of, surrendering, where we know surrendering doesn't mean giving up anything. It's actually just embodying a belief that we already have, which in my case is that everything's connected, everything in the universe, we are all connected. Sentient beings on earth are connected, and we can gear our everyday life, our existence, to live more in sync with nature. And so when I finally had my surrender, as I call it, which for me just meant simply fully trusting in energies, frequencies, and the support system that goes beyond just what I can conceive. That was that major surrender for me, and that portal showed itself as these mandalas that I started to make, and I've been doing them for a few years now, and it's just been such a tremendous gift where oftentimes I won't even have words for some things, and this appeared as a manifestation of some of the experiences and meditative, beautiful, freeing heart liberation experiences that I had allowed myself to journey in. And so I love what you said about the Flower of Life Press, and not only the symbol, which is so powerful, so eternal, so all encompassing and beautiful and inspirational, but also when you mentioned your trip to Egypt, because I remember seeing that you announced, saying that you're doing it on social media, and it was just as COVID was starting. It was just as this virus of fear was spreading like wildfire, and the borders were closing, and you just got in, right? It was that window.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I got in that window. It was a divine window of time.
Yes.
And there, my family was like, don't go. And I was getting some of the guilt trip, like, well, think about your family, and something inside of me is just like, I'm going, I'm going, I have to go. And when I got there, I was releasing, I think the biggest piece was releasing self-doubt. And owning the trust in who I was. And I remember standing in one of the temple, there was this little area you could step in, and it was tight and closed inside of this portal. And it was a special place to release things. And so I'm releasing all those parts that are not real, that are masks, that hinder me from being who I am. And then I got out of Egypt by the skin of my teeth, like a day before they shut down the airport. And the whole time I thought, I'd be really happy to be stranded here. It was that amazing and powerfully magnetic, the land, the energy, the remembrances, the people, and being in an ancient place, feeling the connection, that cosmic connection to each other ancestrally throughout time and space. So yeah, it was a really cool experience, and it's something that's new in my life over the past 10 years or so that I've been able to travel. I didn't really do a ton of it in my 20s or 30s, having kids, raising kids, and all of that stuff. So now in my 50s, I just don't have that fear anymore. I really feel the calling to go and to experience something different.
Wow.
And visit different sacred sites, because the earth, like I said, the earth holds everything.
Yeah.
There's so much information and experiences for us. Just in our backyard, inside of nature, in the woods, on a trail. So I think part of the embodiment piece that you were talking about is like activating our senses too. Activating our senses through creativity, right? Through this like manifestation of using creativity, using writing, using art, whatever the tool is for self-expression, it's the portal into the soul.
It really is. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's such a healing opportunity to write. And it, just by knowing you and by working, well, not working, by having an adventure with the publishing process, the two books that I participated in that you co-created with a lot of wonderful women authors, that process of learning about myself and just finding the words, really, as I'm now looking for words when I think about some of these deep experiences and some of these quantum realms, and as you were mentioning, remembrances of other lives as well, or simply lineage of our own through thinking about priestess lineage, and how that's wanting and asking to show up in this world as who, I am, who you are right now. And just, I went through this really transformative, beautiful journey of, writing, where writing was something for me historically, just kind of almost like sharing, I don't want to say dumping, but like a consciousness stream of sharing things that weren't always these amazing experiences that I also had, but more, sharing painful experiences. But through the inquiry of working on a chapter for example, Sovereign Unto Herself book, through that experience and that first true surrender and free falling and knowing that universes and my galactic team and my family, and that I am so deeply loved and supported because each soul is. That was such a transformative experience for me, because I really found so many amazing places in me, and acquaintances and conversations and really meaningful connections with other people. And that would not have happened if I, didn't trust, and if I didn't just have this activated playfulness, this creatrix, Shakti energy that the goddess, was asking to just love life, just be playful. And also just thinking about writing as not only typing and even writing, but sketching things and having a storyline that was not shown before. And so it's just been such an enriching, I think it's such an enriching experience, but also a deeply transformational and intimate and sometimes uncomfortable, but very powerful, empowering experience. And you holding this container for people to do that, which is just so precious and so important, I think is, we're just all so lucky. And I know that it's also, asking just for more space, and so I can see that you have more offerings and that you are supporting more and more women on this journey. And anything that you wanted to maybe talk about that, and in terms of what stories or what any of your experiences, personal or just holding space for others, not just because it's like a tremendous skill.
The thing that's coming through is that I've learned, having called myself a book midwife and midwifing other people's stories, has been, in a way, I can look at that and say, is that a way of avoiding my own voice? Sort of being behind the scenes and catalyzing others to step forward into the light and be seen and be visible, but yet I'm back behind, right? And so people have asked me about this, and so I have to ask myself, like, all right, how am I walking my talk? And how much in integrity am I right now? So a couple of years ago, I declared I was going to write my own book, and I'm a great editor, like I'm happy to own that. But I am afraid to write my own book, because what if it sucks? I mean, I'm a publisher, and that would be really embarrassing. Or like maybe people wouldn't want to work with me, right? So like these fears come in around this, like my own fear. And so it's made me realize this is what other people face, the fear of being seen, of sharing truth, of what the repercussions might be from family members or from the world in general. I realized that it requires a willingness for me to be projected upon, and and to take that, but still hold center. Like if somebody's mad because they're blocked, then maybe they would project that onto me, or holding space, I guess, and letting that happen and being okay and not falling apart, and being able to like hold center in the midst of people falling apart. So,
Wow.
so after I declared that I was going to write my book, I just wrote an email a month or so ago saying, telling the story, like, guess what? I didn't write it. And so what is that? Like, what is that? So I started to explore that, and I know I will write my book. And I'm not really scared anymore of it being bad, because my husband said to me, why would you think that? You have like the best team of editors, designers, strategists, marketers ever in your company. What are you talking about? And I said, yeah, you're right. I do. I have a really good team who would help make my book good too. So it's kind of like owning my power in a new way, where I can shepherd and support and midwife other people. But also, I really need to do that for myself in order to feel integrous in that way. If I'm asking other people to do it, then I need to do it too, so I know what it feels like. And so that I can serve from a place of more integrity, I guess, or more empathy or compassion, or just knowing the ins and outs of what I'm asking other people to do. So that's been a big deal for me. Like, okay, I'm going to do it, and it's vulnerable, and I have the same fears as everybody else. Um, but I'm not going to declare it until I'm really ready and can follow through and do what I say I'm going to do, and give myself that gift of giving myself what I want. So it's been such a great mirror for me to see, where am I still hiding out and afraid of shining or being seen or being rejected, the old deep patterns that so many of us carry. So my mission, and I also discovered this, maybe it was last year or 2 years ago, one of my teachers, Anahita June, I always mention her because she activated me when she asked me, what is the miracle you are holding space for? What's the miracle? And the thing that came out was, I want to share 1 million women's voices. And that number I'd never allowed myself to speak that number, that word, or even think it was possible. But when I said that, I felt it. I felt the possibility of it. And I felt the connection, the fractal nature of our universe. If I can serve one person, I can serve 1 million people. If I can create these rivers of opportunity for people to share their voice, then I'm serving that way. And my voice too. I'll throw mine in there too. But so now these collaborative books have just been such a great portal for that, because it brings these circles of people together, 20, 25, 30, 50. The yoga book had 52 authors in it.
Oh, wow.
And that was incredible, to pull together 52 voices into a collection about yoga, and everybody's personal perspectives and the uniqueness of everybody's story, and yet the threads that connect us all being so similar, the divine human journey, this journey of coming home to the body, coming home to ourself, and trusting, and then letting that be joyful, like you said at the beginning, allowing ourselves to be joyful.
Yeah. Wow. That's so
In the
incredible.
process, like holding it, even if it's painful, the beautiful suffering of life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really am so thankful that you shared that piece about your book, because it's such you've been, I don't remember you announcing this, but I do vaguely remember you saying, that you are ready you were talking about writing your book. And I do read your newsletters with, just love and admiration. And I love that you're sharing, because it's a vulnerable place, as you said. So I love that you are sharing this co-creation with your book, because the book has already been alive, as you put it into word, as you shared with the world, and the story of you. And of course, it's perfect the whole time because it's the story of you, this beautiful, powerful, magical, just gorgeous soul, that's sharing light in the world. And then the vulnerability of the process, like, because I know how much you held the space for me when I really didn't understand, some of the things that were happening in this transition, because it can be a very deep recalibration, because it's not even about unlearning patriarchy so much as I've done, for decades. It's about going towards yourself through this beautiful pathway of love, and also being willing to look at these places that are not comfortable, because it's being vulnerable, it's being in a place where you're sharing that with other people. So I really experienced firsthand the power of collaborative also, where, it's not, because I'm somebody who spends a lot of time actually by myself, and I don't always spend too much time with other people. I do spend a lot of time in nature, but this call, especially since last year, to connect with other priestesses on this path, and to just walk with this new set of senses that are enhanced, to walk with more kindness and gentleness and compassion and patience, not only to people around me, but to myself, as I'm being maybe triggered or catalyzed in this experience of just learning, and doing so effortlessly as a way to liberate ourselves. So that's just so beautiful to hear you speak, and I'm so excited for when, the right time comes, and just, knowing that this perfect creation is well underway and being,
Thank you.
catered to.
I appreciate that, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because I would never, it's been hard to receive accolades. I'm sure a lot of us feel this way, right? Like when you're sharing like nice things. So to be able to receive that and own it and feel the beauty of that, as opposed to like rejecting it and sort of perpetuating the unworthiness or the self-doubt, like she's not really talking about me. Um, so all of us, I think, face that. Like, are we willing to receive? Are we willing to believe it? That that we're powerful, that we're magical, that we are creatrixes, that we can fail and it's okay, that that's what humanity is all about, that we're imperfect, that we have the capacity to be serial killers and angels, like we could be any of it, and that we're all faces of the one, and I am that. So that thing you were talking about, judgment, I think that's what helped me sort of become more present, was recognizing my own internal self-judgment, the inner critic, the voices of torment in my mind, and creating a relationship with them so that I could kind of take over again. My highest self could come in and be like, okay, well, that's not true. I'm not going to listen to that anymore. I'm not going to say that to myself. I'm not going to judge myself anymore based on my trauma, and I'm going to really be conscious about catching those things, because that way, as soon as I stopped judging myself, and I still do, I judge myself a lot, but I can catch it and rephrase it, reframe it, and get back into alignment of the truth, which is we're divine humans. We have the human capacity and the divine capacity. And how do we find that balance and that merging of all of it, and be willing to be in our skin, be willing to be on this planet, be willing to suffer, because life requires it. So it's such a conundrum, but the judgment piece, as soon as I stopped judging myself, I really felt so much more compassion. My heart opened. I could feel people, I could feel myself, and I could hold empathy, and I could see myself in other people, so that I wasn't creating a separation. One of the things that happened recently that really showed, I was so happy to experience this in my own being, but like, we have to move. Our house is being sold. So our landlord said, you've got to move. So we started looking for places. and the rent is ridiculously high right now. And ours, we had this lived in our house for 5 years and he never raised our rent. So now it's double what it was. And there's nothing in the area even available. So we were deciding about this place that was not quite as nice and it was a little further away. And when I walked into the place, it smelled like fish, like they'd actually been cooking fish in this place. But by the time we left, my husband and I were like, yeah, we could do it. We could do it. It's good. We looked at the pros, we looked at the cons, and we're like, we could do this. And then when I got home later, I was just like, something's wrong. That fishy smell really bugged me. But I couldn't trust myself. So I laid down in front of my altar and I was just like, please help me feel what's true. I was afraid like we wouldn't find anything in time that we could afford that was big enough for the family. So I was saying yes because my husband was saying yes, but yet that fishy smell was really not good. It's like that my first impression of the place was like yuck, right? So I was sort of convincing myself that it was okay. But the realization I came to was, it's okay. We're going to get rid of the fish smell and it serves us in these ways. And I'm going to be friends with my neighbors, no matter who they are, no matter where, even if this is on a busy highway, a busy road or whatever, right? Not quite as nice as where we'd been. And I was like, yeah, that's if my purpose is to be there, my purpose is to love my neighbors there and be connected and not isolate myself so much. And I said, I trust, I surrender, I release, yes, whatever's in the highest good. I posted it on Facebook. I had all these people saying, yes, whatever's in the highest good. And the very next day, somebody else called and we went to look at that place. It's the place we're going to take now. And it's really what I want. And so I just trusted. And the very next day, the perfect place dropped in. So I didn't have to say yes to that other place that part of me wasn't thrilled about, but I was ready to say yes. Because I was like, if this is what it's going to be now, I'm ready. I'm okay with that. And I'm going to love my neighbors as myself. And I just realized right now, oh, that's like a Christian thing, that just popped in. And that's really my whole point. And so the house we're going to move into is actually part of a big old antique house. It's been turned into an apartment. And there's a family living there with a little kid who's autistic. And so we're going to be living with this family with an autistic child in this big old farmhouse. I mean, we have our privacy because it's a separate apartment, but it's going to require becoming part of this family's community. And so I was like, yeah, I'm ready for that too. Whereas, so it's like the universe is showing me like your whole point is to just be home wherever you go and love your neighbors as yourself. And so it's showing me like, it's giving me what I really desire because I felt that level of consciousness shift in me. I wasn't judging it anymore. Like this place stinks, this is low rent or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And so and what I heard from the goddess when I laid in front of my altar and just said, thank you, please just tell me, help me feel what's true. I just heard, you've done it. You've done it. Right? I felt that, oh, I've done it. I hit that place where I'm not judging anymore. And then of course the universe delivers right away. It's like, this is the divine manifestation. It's all about saying yes and also knowing our boundaries, ready to say no. If I had trusted a little bit more, I probably would have said no right away to that other place, knowing that something else would come. Part of me was in scarcity. I was afraid. So I was trying to convince myself that I was a yes. And in doing so, I received the knowing that it was perfect. If it was in divine order, it was the perfect place.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love that. So many of us still judge ourselves, even when we have skills and techniques in place for both the imposter syndrome or just catching ourselves, like you said, catching ourselves judging ourselves, or because of not loving ourselves in that moment, more fully judging others before we realize it. And that is also this magical aspect of being on the path. As you know, it doesn't matter how many things we've transmuted and how many times even we've transmuted something colossally blocking or freeing us up, it can still occur yet again as an invitation to, you know, what is the script? What is the remainder of the script here now? And creating it. So, wow, I'm so excited for your new place. It sounds wonderful and spacious.
Oh, and not only that, but the original advertisement said no dogs, no pets. And so we're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go because they said no pets and we have a dog. And I was like, well, let's just go anyway, because maybe we can convince them if they like us that it would be okay for the dog. But my husband said, no, just call her. What's the point? Why waste her time, right? So I called her and I said, by the way, we have a dog. I don't know if that's a deal breaker. And she's like, oh, no, no problem.
Okay.
So I was like, wow, I'm so glad I called, that that felt like the integrous thing to do, instead of keeping it a secret and not telling her we had a dog and trying to slide in like some other way, instead of just being real and being like, guess what? We have a dog. I don't know if that's a deal breaker. And she was fine with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I was like, oh, again, I learned from my husband, like, I trust, just trust and be truthful and be real and just see what happens, because the divine is the one who's in charge here, not me.
Yeah.
And that surrender, that trust is like the thing, that knowing that, like, we're held, the earth has us. She's not going to let us go flying off into space. There's nothing ever that can ever hurt us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a beautiful path. We're so blessed, and I just feel lucky to be able to see, kind of like, work the energy of my field and then the collective field, and just keep learning and growing. Every moment seems to be another life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. And what could hit home closer than actual home? It's the shelter. So it's like really asking for that surrender and then being rewarded with exactly what you want and what you need, the spaciousness of being on a
and
farm.
Didn't see it coming, like, couldn't predict it, couldn't see it.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so those divine synchronicities are so powerful, like, as a creatrix, as we practice this and let life be the initiation and life mirror back to us what's actually going on inside. That quantum thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
That has been a really powerful tool, I think, for me to trust this way of living, this multidimensional way of living, and letting life lead, and sort of getting the ego back a little bit so that I can be in the flow to receive what's being delivered.
Yeah, receiving is definitely a new opportunity for me to deepen with, and not just understand that I'm ready, but to truly deepen in the surrender, and how that's manifested in every facet of life, because it's not a separate thing, like, oh, this is my spiritual life and this is my 3D life. It's combining the two. So it's so beautiful to see that manifestation happen so just effortlessly. That's the whole joy. It's like you're just allowing it to happen. You're not trying to do anything. You're just allowing.
And then I'm laughing hysterically, like, how did I ignore that? The very first thing that hit me when I walked in that place was the smell of fish. How could I have ignored that?
Yeah.
Right? Or just, oh, it's okay.
Yeah, we're not coming back with the mountain of sage here.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, here's how we're going to get the fish smell out. I was trying to come up with a solution, like, fix it. So yeah, it's just so interesting. And I think detaching is a big part of this. Detaching from the outcome and letting it be okay. That's why I was like, yep, I'm okay. If that's where we're going, I'm good. if that's what the divine needs me to be, where the divine wants me and where I need to be right now, I'm there.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Really feeling this now open space and this connection to Mama Gaia that, you speak into a lot, because, you live in such beautiful synchronicity and intimate relationship with exploring the aspects of Mama Gaia, and as she's blossoming in you. And I know you mentioned travel, so some of the offerings I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit about the offerings in this beautiful new trajectory, this new vein of your of Flower of Life Press, is these retreats and the Magdalene path. And I know you were in France last year, and I was reading your posts and looking at the pictures that you shared from the special caves there, and just the space and really coming through with this, that has been my invitation to deepen with the Magdalene love path, and how that's, showing up and resonating with me. So I loved reading more about your offerings, and just, I feel like you're doing so much, and maybe I've not kept up with it all, but I know you're doing a lot of beautiful offerings to, as another way to walk as love and to offer this love path as a unifying force to empower people.
Yes, thank you for the invitation to talk about this, because magically I was connected with an author, a best-selling author, Kathleen McGowan, who has written about the persecution of women over time, and she's a historian, so she writes about the Magdalene, and she's done 30 years of research in France, following her in her footsteps. And so when we came together as publishing partners and I created a press for her, she has been my initiator into the Magdalene in a really big way, and because it's her calling. And so I felt like I needed to go to France if I was going to be calling myself an anointing priestess, a Magdalene, and working with the oils and healing and being a death doula and all of the kind of little pieces that are part of that experience. I'm like, okay, I need the initiation. I've got to go so I can really deepen into it. And so I went, and when I got there, it was almost more powerful than Egypt, I think. I felt home. And I felt home in Egypt too, and I felt home here. So there's certainly that connection, like the Egyptian Magdalene connection. And so the sacred travel has been, because Kathleen has been running these sacred travel journeys for years. I got to go on one of her sacred travel journeys, and prior to that, I went on another one to Egypt with Rima. And both of those opportunities just taught me about the power of place and the energetics of our ancestry and of ancient wisdom. And so I'm a yes to anything that involves travel. So now we've created a writer's retreat in France in May that we're doing. And then we're going to have a writer's retreat in Egypt probably next year.
Oh my
gosh. Yeah, and go into and sit in the center of the pyramids and write for 2 hours inside of the sarcophagus, right? Or the resonating chamber. Like, it's just so amazing. I could have never have imagined these kinds of opportunities, and it's all about the relationships. That's what's creating them, is the collaboration and the relationships, because we don't have to do this stuff alone. We can do it together and make it easy and exciting. And so the Magdalene offerings have really kind of become, I guess when I went to France, I felt myself coming home to my own roots which I was raised Episcopalian, but then I excommunicated myself from the church when I was 15 and never went back and became an atheist. And then my whole life, I felt like I was searching for belief. I remember saying to people, how come everybody else can believe but me? And I was mad. I was mad at God. Um, so, so the Magdalene path has allowed me to remember, this is part of my heritage. I mean, I'm like 99% Western European, I guess. And I had my DNA done when I came back from France, and 34% Occitania, which is ancient French, where the Cathars were, like where the heretics were, the heretics who were persecuted. And I'm like, what? I had no idea I had French in my lineage, like, especially there.
Yeah.
Where all of this happened and where the persecution of hundreds of Cathars, happened by the Crusaders, by the Catholics. And these Cathars were followers of the Magdalene. They practiced the way of love. And so I was like, whoa, okay, now I'm really feeling the lineage, my own roots. I just like connected with my roots when I was there. I felt the power of that and the remembrance. I had a nightmare while I was there that was like being in one of the massacres.
Oh gosh.
And it was terrifying. It was the worst nightmare I've ever had in my life, and I haven't had one in years. And then I had that. So it's just like, oh, so good, so powerful. And Magdalene her presence is there. She's everywhere. She was there doing the work. She boots on the ground, helping. She created a homeless shelter. She did other things, and you can see that she was there in all of the traditions and all of the art. They honor her and have not forgotten her. And it's like, this is post crucifixion, post Jesus, right? This is like beyond Jesus. This is her moving forward with fortitude and resilience to do her work in the world. Yeah. As a widow, as facing that huge initiation of losing her beloved, and continuing on to do the work and to be in that path, on the path of love. So she is such a great role model for us today who resonate with her and with that. And it's not about the religion. And yet it like brings me to the truth of the religion that was suppressed.
Yeah. Yeah, so suppressed. That's so powerful that you had that nightmare. That almost sounds like it could be a remembrance of another time or another life in some way.
It was earlier that day. I'd been walking down into this gorge. We were retracing the steps of the Cathars who were burned at the stake down in this area in I can't remember the name of the town now. It starts with an M. But we were really tuned into the power and the fear and the terror of those people. And so I felt like I was almost walking, in their footsteps down into the gorge where they were burned. And while I was down there in that gorge, I injured my toe or something, and there was blood everywhere. Oh, wow. And so that was bizarre. So, yeah.
Wow, yeah, lots of symbolism there. Just so I couldn't agree more about what you said, that she's such a great role model is, this Mary Magdalene energy, and just the, again, going back to how powerful it is to work with archetypes and to simply activate them in ourself, goddess archetype, and in this case, living human being who's, she followed her heart and she walked this path of love. And we're still today not only needing more of this type of cultivated love space in ourselves, but to nurture it with others as well. And for me, it was just, I'm definitely not a religious person, or not a religious person. I wasn't brought up that way, but if anything, it could be said that I'm a really bad Muslim. I'm not religious, but as a spiritual being, in this, enamored by my adventure to explore my soul path and my soul journey as it plays out, I really feel the call of Mary Magdalene for, it's been over a year now, and it just means um, um, absorbing through all of the different senses with the oil, with the rose oil and other love and sacred energy and crystal infused type of oils. And also this connection with nature. She was Mary Magdalene, a gardener, and always so, just living in synchronicity with nature, but mostly this just humble and just this path of walking is love. And what does that even mean in today's world, and the world just going so crazy, not only with COVID and the wars, but just seeing so many different opportunities to turn around the fear, the judgment, the insecurity that a lot of people feel, this separation from love, this feeling like a lot of people just feeling like they can't be themselves, and feeling like this is really what a lot of the illnesses come from, like stress and anxiety, and just being on social media too much, and being disconnected, feeling disconnected. So I really feel her medicine, the Magdalene medicine. That's why I just am so enamored and grateful to learn more about these offerings from Kathleen and you, and to read more. And what a rare, beautiful opportunity to actually experience this for ourselves, to go on a retreat. I don't even think I've ever been to France, so it's just I'm so excited to learn more about it, and also to hop on one of these workshops
Well,
with your
oh
team.
my gosh,
And
yes. It's like,
amazing.
and that piece was really fun too, creating these writing workshops. I just pulled runes and that was my theme. I'm like, okay, there it is. So like trusting the
Wow.
rune that I pulled as the theme for that writing workshop, and then trusting that whatever it is going to emerge, including even the writing prompts and everything. So yeah, that's been really, really neat to just help create a space for people to just write. When we write together, when we co-write in a space like that, it is more powerful than anything I've seen. I've seen people break through big time writer's block just by coming into a circle and writing together.
Yeah, and it's so powerful that it was an actual that you were physically in the same space, versus so much of what we're doing through priestessing has been in this virtual space, and technology as a great bridge to connect all of us who can't physically, for whatever reason, can't be
Hmm.
physically in the same space. Really has built communities, but I think with COVID experience now hopefully waning, and just people starting to come back to actually be in physical space somewhere in nature together, I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
online thing is not going away either, so we
Yeah.
still have
It's
that.
it's so interesting. It's like we are avatars. Like we've become avatars. And sometimes we forget that we're actually real flesh and blood and that we need that flesh and blood connection. We really do. And science proves this, like babies don't thrive unless they're held, when they're born. And so even the etheric space, I think the etheric space has been necessary, and it is maybe primary. Um, Hopefully we'll be at that place where we can be in person again. And that's why I do love these retreats, because it forces us to get off of social media and to be together in a new way, and connect with the land in a new way, and just feed ourselves with new stimulus and new thoughts and ideas and creative projects. Life is fodder for our content, which there's never not something to write about.
Yeah, yeah.
I could write about how I'm sitting here. I could write about our conversation. I could write about this pair of glasses. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is here as a mirror, and we'll find meaning in it.
Yeah.
When we write, we create meaning.
Mm.
So it's primary.
That's beautiful. When we write, we create meaning. That's really powerful. And followed by silence, I think that will really resonate. And I think what's so transformative is really invites people to think about themselves in this new way, which writing also invites. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we
It
will
doesn't require
certainly,
skill. It doesn't really require skill because there's all the tools out there to help make it good, like Grammarly and other kinds of tools.
yeah.
So you don't even have to be trained as a writer to write and share your story and make an impact.
Yeah, I think that's a very important piece of information and reminder for people,
Yeah, because
because
most
a
of us
lot of,
aren't.
yeah, and a lot of people have an amazing story. They think they want to write, and then when you're in a sacred container, like the one that you hold and offer, you go through a process of transformation. It's not about what I want, it's what I'm allowing, what I'm willing to allow for it to come through, because there are things that are just meant to be shared as a transformative journey for me. It's not like, oh, I just came here, I'm not a writer, I'm gonna have
Yeah,
somebody
and
help
it
me
doesn't even
fix it.
have to be it doesn't even have to be public,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, it's like what I say to my students, the divine is your co-author. So if you can empty out and allow the divine to write through you, your book will write you.
Mm.
And so that's a really fun thing to go into that utter trust again into the void and see how the goddess wants to write through you as the vessel.
Beautiful words of wisdom there. Thank you, Astara. And we will certainly list all of the different places where people can find you to learn more, to join some different communities that you offer on social media, and sign up for any of the retreats and workshops. And I know you have so many wonderful offerings, and so we will certainly list it, and anything else that you wanted to share about, what people can reach out to you for, and anything else that you wanted to
Thank
share at
you.
this time.
Yeah, thank you. I think the Divine Writing Journey is our group writing program. It's a 9-month journey to birth your book. And so that's what I'm focused on a lot these days, is really inviting people into that process. So you can go to divinewritingjourney.com and read about it. And then you can apply, and without any obligation to join. And then I'll send you a private training that I created called your writing roadmap. So yeah, if anybody wants to visit divinewritingjourney.com, you can apply to get that training, even if you don't want to be a part of the program.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, and thank you. I know also the free there's also a free workshop that you do every year online, and it's about busting through these myths of
Yes.
fear and
Yeah.
judgment. I remember doing this training thanks to you at least a couple of times, and it's surprising because it's like, oh, I think I figured it out, or I got over that, or I've worked on transmuting that, or this resonates and doesn't resonate. And the surprise is just showing up. And I think that's been one of the beautiful reminders, and for me, is to just show up for yourself, and show up for your community, because that's when these unexpected wonderful things happen, like the house, the perfect house.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation, and just sharing your beauty and the sweetness of just the medicine of you. And we'll share more information below the video. And for everybody listening, you can get in touch and learn more about Astara's Flower of Life Press and other wonderful offerings and her community. And thank you so much. I'm
Thank
sending you
you.
so much love.
Thank you so much.